Okay, looks like we've got our feed going. Hello and welcome everybody. Happy Friday. This is meant to be sort of a tour guide through one of my favorite games. It's Shiren the Wanderer, the Tower of Fortune, and the Dice of Fate. This is sort of brought on by some interest in an explainer or tour guide stream from the Eggplant community, Eggplant being a podcast about the design and creation of games. Definitely recommend checking that out. So we're in the intro screen right now, and really all that I'm going to do, probably for the better part of, let's say 45 minutes to an hour, is run through the initial setup of the campaign, go through the early intro stuff, and then just kind of play through and indicate different things that I think are interesting for new players, things to keep an eye on. And if there are any questions in chat, I will try to watch as I go. I'm new to streaming, so I've got the stream manager set up. I will periodically look back and try to answer questions as I go, but I'll also try to point out other things as well. So, but in the meantime, let's get into the game. This is Shiren the Wanderer. Also, let me know if the levels are okay. I from the last test stream that we did, the game levels were a little bit hot, so I brought those down. So let's see what we got. This top one is the campaign that I already have established. Let's create a new Wanderer's Diary, preferably in English. That's all that I know how to read. So we'll create a diary. For the Eggplant community, we'll go ahead and we'll delete the name here without taking us right out to the menu. We'll just say that this is Eggplant the Wanderer. How about that? I think that'll work. So, Shiren the Wanderer. Eggplant. Yes, absolutely sure. My partner is the Wanderer Eggplant. And I'm the storytelling ferret Kappa. So yeah, the basic premise is that Shiren and his ferret friend Kappa just kind of wander around from place to place, getting into wacky adventures. The Shiren the Wanderer series is a part of the Mystery Dungeon series, which gets you into there's actually a wide array of Mystery Dungeon games now, between Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. The original Mystery Dungeon was actually a Dragon Quest spinoff from Dragon Quest IV, the Merchant Tornico, or Torneco, I don't know how to say that. The entire premise of the first Mystery Dungeon game created by Spike Chunsoft is that you would go through as Tornico, and you would go into the dungeons to get the merchandise that you would sell in your shop in Dragon Quest IV. So that was a Japanese-only game. Many of these were Japanese-only games until the first Shiren the Wanderer arrived on DS. That was a port of the Super Famicom version. And that has basically got the series to where we are now. So we go into this house, and this brings us to the main story of the campaign for Tower of Fortune, Dice of Fate. Basically, the idea is that OU is sick, and Jirokichi, long childhood friend, and erstwhile partner in life, wants to make her better. So one of the things that I like about the story in Tower of Fortune and Dice of Fate is the way that Jirakichi is specifically pushing against the idea of fate, specifically pushing against the idea of luck guiding every action that you have, which ideally plays perfectly into a roguelike. You go into a dungeon, you're sort of at the fate of the RNG, the fate of the level generation and the monsters there. And the idea is to push back against that and to succeed and to ascend if it's a traditional roguelike, or in the case of Sharon the Wanderer, get to the end. And I think this gives a nice resonant narrative to what is actually going on. This is Jirakichi pushing back against fate in the same way that we want to push back against fate anytime that we would play a roguelike. So, off he goes. Commotion up ahead, Eggplant. That's tough. Guess it's time to go. Oh, look at that. He destroyed the gate that was blocking the path and ran ahead. Jirakichi straight up ran through a wall for this girl. It's kind of into him. That seems right up our alley. So, can't just let him be. This is where we actually start our journey. We won't necessarily go to the beginner house, though. If you do want to go to the beginner house, it's right here. You can go through the training sessions there. Yeah, they're pretty useful. But for the purpose of the stream, I'll go ahead and run through this. So there's a little bit of training here as well. So they're prepared for players like me that are not interested in your beginning house nonsense. So let's talk about the UI for a second. At the top, we have Sharon's HP. This is going to reset for every run. As you walk around in the dungeon, your HP fills up automatically. This is a somewhat traditional roguelike, which means that it's turn-based, but the monsters and other actors in the dungeon share those turns with you. So as we go, I push the Y button here to bring up a grid. So grid-based movement. You can use the Y button holding it up like this to set what direction you're facing. I don't know why I just showed the controller. That's so silly. But you can set you're facing this way. This can become important, especially with multiple attacking monsters, if you want to make sure you're targeting the right one. So you walk over an item to pick it up. So you can get into the backpack. If you walk over an item, it'll automatically pick up. We can hit X to go to the backpack. It's an herb. With all items that you aren't immediately familiar with, I definitely recommend reading the details on it. It'll usually, if it's not an unidentified item, it'll give you details about what the item will do. Now, one of the things that I would like to do also that I've noticed here is we're going to go to options and dungeon settings 2. And we're going to set on the live display. And this is what gets us something that's maybe a little more amenable for streaming. So with this, we get the full inventory over on the right. We get the attack power and defense, the experience points that it takes to get to the next level, fullness, which you have up at the top, but it's just useful to have, and then a list of the current statuses, because you will eventually come into different status effects from monsters or items that you pick up and deal with. So we'll go ahead and get that set. Let's talk about some other important controls. So walking around, grid-based movement. You can walk diagonally. You hold the R button. And you see how it brings up the little diagonals here. This forces diagonal movement. It can be kind of hard, especially if you're playing on a Switch Pro controller, to get diagonal movement sort of freehand. Like, you can do it, but you're at the mercy of the D-pad for the Pro controller. However, if you hit this R button, this will guarantee that only the diagonal movements are available. So this way, if you're on the D-pad or even if you're playing on analog stick, this helps limit your movement in that way. Quick shortcut to the backpack is the B button. That's how I was able to jump into that. So that way you don't have to go through the menu button as before, like this way. And then when you are in a hallway or anywhere that you want to speed up, because sometimes going one by one over these grids gets a little tiresome, you can hold the B button and it'll fast forward you. It'll kind of do like a super fast travel of the turns. So now this is our first monster that's coming up here. Thanks, Kappa. Yep, there are monsters here. So face the monster and press the A button to attack it. Let your guard down. So now, the monster was sleeping before. You can see now with its idle animation that it is awake. We'll move forward, and you see that when we move forward, it moves as well. Monsters can move along diagonals as well. And one of the basic fundamentals of combat with Sharing the Wanderer, or any roguelike of this vein, is making sure that you manage your position. Positioning is almost the entire game when it comes to roguelikes, other than managing your damage output against the kind of the curve of the dungeon, like the strength of the different monsters as you're going floor to floor. So we'll hit the A button. We'll punch that guy. And this is an important point too. If you take damage, your HP will slowly heal over time as you walk around in the dungeon. Good to know. Now, as we've been walking around, you'll see the FG, or the fullness gauge, has been going down. Like other roguelikes, as you're moving and Sharing the Wanderer, you get more hungry as you go. It's meant to be a disincentive for just hanging around and grinding on the monsters in a floor. It's meant to press the player forward. So, in this case, when you move, so they're the monsters, if you're in a tough predicament, stay calm and think before you take any actions. One thing that we should mention about movement as well, if you punch or attack, so right now, so for science, if I move forward, the monster here is going to get the initiative and attack me. And I'm basically giving them a free attack. So this is what we talk about with positioning. In this particular case, actions take a turn just like movement does. So I can do just a blank punch, like nothing will happen, and you see that the monster takes his turn at the same time. And now he moves into position where it's easy for me to get the first hit. Okay, the player initiates the contact for a given turn. So you want that first strike potential, especially with monsters late in a dungeon. Sometimes that's the only way that you have any shot at killing them at all, because they will just flatten you with one hit. But if you get them first, especially if you can tag them with a status effect to put them to sleep or to confuse them, to blind them, those different status effects like that become crucial for managing the more powerful enemies in a dungeon later on. And it all comes back to that fundamental aspect of positioning. So, in this case, we'll go ahead and hit that again. We gained experience points. We got 6 more to the next level. Let's go ahead and wander around a little bit. You see what I did there? That's terrible. Hey, look! Some stairs! Thanks, Kappa. Alright, so second floor. That's our dash. That's what I was talking about, the sort of... I don't know why I called it fast travel, just because I'm rambling on stream. So dashing is what... it takes one turn per tile, but helps chew through all of these situations. There's the diagonally part. To move diagonally. Now, the monster here I can also attack diagonally as well. And so one thing I just realized that I did without even realizing it, I came into range of an enemy, but I was facing the one in a different direction. You can tap the Y button, which is what brings up the grid, and you will automatically face any enemy that's in range there. So it's an easy way to kind of flip to the enemy you want to attack. Onigiri, it's delicious. This is known. Translation in Shiren's pretty good. Sometimes it's a little quirky. This is known. When you're starving, your HP will begin to decrease. And yeah, so that's the ramifications of the fullness gauge. If you get down to 0 out of 100, you'll eventually start taking health damage as you walk through the dungeon. And that's something that isn't really tenable. A lot of the times in Shiren the Wanderer or other roguelikes like this, you're relying on walking through the dungeon to heal yourself up, since HP gets restored per step. Alright. Just move once diagonally. When fleeing from monsters, move diagonally to keep them from catching up to you. That doesn't always work. Sometimes monsters move diagonally too. Equipping a shield will give you a higher defense power than you would have barehanded. Don't forget to equip it. Yeah. So if we go to the backpack, go to equip. So right now we have a defensive score of 0. Doing a basic 10 shield gets us to 4. Ordinary stick. We're at an attack power of 0, which, I mean, you're still able to kill the very smallest monsters, but obviously not tenable for a later run. Later floors in a given run. So, ordinary stick only gives us 2 attack power. Not great, but it's a roguelike. It's what you have to work with. So for sorting in the backpack, if I go into the backpack either through hotkey or through the menu button, and I hit the Y button, that sorts the items into your equipped items up at the top, and then usually either loose items or preservation pots. When we get there, will be the critical one. Oh, see, I walked into that. I walked straight into that, and I got attacked. One thing that we can do to review the message log, right? Like, so for each of these actions, there's a different thing that comes up indicating what happens, and you can review the message log at any time by holding the ZR button on the Switch controller. So this gives you both the dialogue messages that have come up as well as different actions that were taken in the dungeon. So Sproutin did 1 damage to Eggplant. Okay, and then you can hit B to cancel out. So there are 2 enemies here that are awake. There's one that is up here. So I'm using the right stick to look within a given room. So we have this one that's awake here, as well as the one that attacked us immediately. You can use this to look around in any given room that you're at. So I can't leave this room, and I can't use it in a hallway. But if I am in a larger room that I've got that means I have a sort of line of sight that is enforced from the right stick. This is something that could be pretty useful when you get into larger rooms and you need to assess sometimes what's the easiest plan of attack or plan to get through a given room. Let's go ahead and bop him with the stick. And this time I'll swing first and let them come in to position so that I get initiative. Actual smart play for once. We'll advance. Hold the Y button and press the directional buttons to turn in place. Pressing the Y button will automatically make you face an adjacent monster. So this is what I was talking about before. Bop. Doesn't cost a turn to change directions. That's true. It's free action. Bop. Healing without moving, doing the B and the A button, is something that I find doesn't really come up very often in the main campaign, but will become a much bigger deal when you get into longer post-game dungeons in Tower of Fortune Dice of Fate, especially like a 99 floor dungeon like Lost Well. At that point, you're basically crawling from floor to floor, just on survival later on, and sometimes it becomes much more of an issue of managing time against your health, and you'll want to rest on those. Rest in those moments. So we got Gary. We'll dash our way through. And to other hints to view different hints. I think we're good. So we've completed what is effectively the tutorial dungeon. I mean, they do have the beginner house, but this gives you the very basics of maneuvering around in Sharing the Wanderer as well. And I think it's pretty smart for that. So that gets us into Nekomaneki Village. And there is a lot going on in this place. So let's talk about some things first. So the warehouse and the hotel, this is where you will wake up on a given run after you have, if you've used an undo grass or an escape scroll or died. Basically, if your run has come to an end one way or another, you'll wake up here. You have your bank to deposit money in. So this is less of a concern, I think, for the main campaign. Well, it's less of a concern with this particular game of Sharing the Wanderer. Later, Sharing the Wanderer's gold is, I think, a little more at a premium. But here you can deposit any gold that you have so that it is saved across runs, right? Like if you die in the dungeon and you have 10,000 gold, it's gone. But this is a way, when you return from a dungeon, if you want to mitigate that risk somewhat, you can deposit that gold here. This is your inventory, your warehouse inventory. This is very critical for managing your weapons that can be used for item synthesis later on, which, in my opinion, is like the main way to get meaningful progression into the campaign. I don't know if with the time window that we've got here, I'll be able to show too much with that, but we'll see. So you can store and withdraw. You have a little bit of storage here. As you find weapons or shields with modifiers, you'll want to bring them back. And then just a conventional store, but really, I mean, we can buy stuff here. Sometimes, so revival grass is a nice one. So revival grass, let's look at the details for. So if you collapse while you have this item in your possession, you will automatically revive. So this is super critical for situations like if you end up getting one shot and you weren't prepared for it. This gives you sort of like the same way that a fairy in Link to the Past would do for Zelda. This gives you a way to get back into the fight. This is something that will activate when it is in a pot. This becomes crucial later. If you get it into a preservation pot, not just any pot, a preservation pot that you can freely insert and retrieve items out of, revival grass becomes very, very important there. Also undo grass, which leads me to the next place that we're going to go. So we're not going to get the revival grass here, but we will make our way into the point shop. So if you come down here, this is the very first thing that you should do. This is the point shop. Sometimes you come here with the intent to exchange your points, but sometimes nobody's here. I hope he'll be back real soon. The Tanuki Lot store opened underneath Hotel Nekomaneki, so maybe he's over there. So this shop gets you a points card. That points card is something that you will have on you to accumulate points as you go over certain traps in the dungeon. It is super useful. Incredibly useful. So we'll come down here to the basement. Lottery. We will talk to Ponta, who is a raccoon dog that's running the lottery here. Lottery is full of happiness and prizes. Selling lottery lots. Nope. He's so worried. I love the little character portraits in this game. They're very well drawn. For some reason, I can't sell a single one. Oh. It's totally not true. If there's no way to win, then it sounds like I'm cheating my customers. Dog lots. No winners in there. This is, yeah, I don't... As an excuse to bring in some of the different side characters in the game, it works. Throw some winners in there, too. They're only 30 each. A special sale. Yep, let's buy it. Four types of lots. Big winner, winner, loser, big loser. A big loser ticket. You'll have to pay me 200. It's a terrible idea. Alright. This is something that you can come back to do at any point later on during the game, too. We are going to do the green lot. All of the lots have different descriptions. As far as I'm aware, there's nothing that really indicates a winner or loser. The super, ultra, super big winner. The first lot that you get, I think, is this one. What? It's a video game. It's a super ultra super Origins video game. Prize number 1, encyclopedia books. That's kids back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Sometimes humans would look into books called encyclopedia for facts. Before there was Wikipedia. You might have wondered where the pedia part of Wikipedia came from. The ancient texts. So, when you defeat monsters or pick up items, they'll get registered into the book automatically. So, it'll be there until it's identified. Prize number 2. The secret pot can now be used. So, the secret pot that raccoon dogs use. You insert an item into the pot and wait a few moments. A new item never seen before will pop out. You can make grass that heals and replenishes strength. Or a really powerful ordinary stick. You can make all sorts of things. Written to the encyclopedia book, and so they'll start appearing in the world. So this is something... So I talked about synthesis being a main driver for progression with your weapons and your shields. The bracelets that you can pick up, what I usually like to try to do is I bring spare bracelets that I'm not wearing because those can't really get modifiers in the same way that weapons and shields can. And I'll bring them here if they're spare and I'm not equipping them, And I will. So what happens is you bring an item to the secret lot, or the secret pot rather. Sorry, I'm stuck on the lottery lots here. If you bring it to the secret pot, then you can wait a couple of days, like actual days, not necessarily in-game days or different runs, like actual calendar days. And every day that an item is in the secret pot, it has a chance of getting a new modifier or new ability, up to the point of 7 days. And then at the point of it being in there for a week, it turns into weeds. So it is a very good way to get very interesting bracelets, very powerful bracelets. Sometimes, I mean, you could put staves and other grass in there as well. But to me, it sort of makes the benefit of investing an item like that not as great. Looks like I've been talking for too long. Same. Please help out my store. So when you create a new item in the pot, and that's the thing, like the different items, the different abilities that get assigned to an item, effectively create a totally new item. When you pull it out of the pot, you'll name it. You'll actually do the description for it. They get registered in the encyclopedia, and you can buy them from this guy, even if you end up losing that item later. Of course, the items can be very pricey, depending on how effective they are. There aren't any new items in your encyclopedia book. Make new items and register them and come back. So, I don't know. Do I have anything to insert in there? Okay. We're going to put an ordinary stick in there, because ordinary stick is a weapon, not really a significant upgrade over just smacking people. So we'll insert that in just to have something in there. Insert it into the secret pot. Come back and check tomorrow. So kind of cueing you to that daily update of the items. You can see the different color change with the secret pots here. We'll go ahead and make our way up. Now I think that should trigger the point shop guy. Yeah, here he is. Welcome to the point shop. Yes, Ponta told you to stop by. Give you a point card. Okay, so this is kind of critical. You get the first point card for free. If you do end up losing it in a dungeon because you get hit and you lose all the items in your inventory, you can create a new point card for 1,000 gold or gitan, however it's pronounced in the game. You retain all the points across the card, so the points are not locked to the card. So you hold the point card and step on a point switch inside a dungeon, and this card will help you earn points just by doing that. Yeah, and you'll see as we go through the dungeon that the point switches, especially early on, can show up frequently. It behaves like a trap. It's a way for them to seed kind of these little bits of these little bonuses throughout the dungeon in the environment without necessarily having it tied to a weapon. Something that has ideally progression across runs, because you're going to be accumulating points on this card or across all of your cards. On all of your runs, as long as you have the card with you. So accumulate points, acquire merchandise. Yeah, if it's inside a pot that's sealed, that won't earn any points. Even if you lose the point card, we can reissue them. And that's what I was talking about. So the critical thing here, so exchanging the points. What are the items that you want to exchange points for? So the main thing that becomes super important is this undo grass. So undo grass is similar to the revival grass, where if you perish in the dungeon, it automatically activates. But with the Undo Grass, it gives you the option of either reviving on the spot and staying in the dungeon, or leaving the dungeon with your belongings. Now that means that you end up having to restart the run, but you can restart the run with all of your equipment intact. So this basically gives you a way to make this almost more like a roguelite rather than a traditional roguelike. You can keep your items. You can buy Undo Grass. The point cost here is very small. For 70, the points that we'll see per point switch start at like 10, and they go up as you go deeper into a given dungeon. Some of the later dungeons, like, you'll end up getting like 50 or like 60, or like a ton of points. So Undo Grass is incredibly important. Right now we don't have a choice because we don't have points to buy it with, but do not leave home without it. Do not leave the town without at least one of these, and usually I stock 3 or 4. I stock them in the next critical item that's right below it. That's a preservation pot. So the preservation pot, you can freely store and withdraw items with this. This effectively extends your inventory. Usually I end up running like 5 or 6 preservation pots in my inventory, all with different items. And we can talk a little bit about why you want to have so many preservation pots and kind of how to arrange items in them. Long story short, this is something that's very important to keeping your equipment as you go through the dungeon, and then keeping it across runs, because you will want to keep as much stuff as you can, and then bring it back to town if you do the Undo Grass or an escape scroll, which you can read at any point to go back to town as well. Town portal scroll, so to speak. And that is another way to earn gold, to get items identified, so on and so forth. When you get a little bit later into the game, Synthesis Pot becomes much more important. If we looked at the details for this, this is what I was talking about earlier, like merging weapons to merge their modifiers. This is a very modifiers and also runes, which are different effects for weapons. Maybe a weapon that has it so that you swing in 3 directions for one attack, or one that shoots fireballs if you're at full health, or a shield that reduces the amount of hunger that you incur per step in the dungeon, and so on and so forth. So you'll want the Synthesis Pot to merge all of your items, even items that you might not think are immediately useful. They can be merged into your main loadout to convey those positive effects. So right now we can't run with anything. Go to the point shop. And really that's the main thing that we want to use. I will go ahead really quickly. Come back to the shop. I will take that Revival Grass. Better safe than sorry. Alright. Let's see if we can catch up with Jirikichi. I don't know that we're going to be able to do that. So Destiny Trail is the main dungeon on the way to the Tower of Fortune. So now we get into more of the game proper. Do you know how to suspend the game? I guess we could do this real quick. Open the menu and select suspend. If you're tired, just go and take a break. So we can suspend in the dungeon or in town. It doesn't matter. Since it's a turn-based game, you can do it anywhere. So save your adventure. This will quit all the way out. Even close out the game here. Come back. And when we load back into the game, this will give us the ability to suspend. You have the switch suspend as well, but this can be useful too. So Eggplant the Wanderer. Let's jump back in. Play the game. All right. So now we are in the so-called real game. At least the main campaign. We're past the tutorial stuff. Let's let's walk and talk. So we have the map that's in the upper left. Right here we can already see that we've got the exit, but we don't want to exit right now. Early on, it's important for us to try to explore as much as possible for items and other loot. Sometimes you'll meet characters in the dungeon, such as this guy. Super plating craftsman. I can plate anything. Plating an item is super important. It is a way to protect yourself from an item getting losing modifiers due to rust. So you'll get different traps where you'll hit a rush trap. You'll get like sprayed with water, and it'll like magic water that'll immediately rust your weapon. So it'll be a -1 weapon. Or a minus shield weapon, kind of randomly. Or minus shield weapon, god. A -1 shield. So it's something that when you're working, like every like +1 modifier, that might be an item in a synthesis pot, right? Like that might be something that is effectively an investment in a given weapon. So you want to plate whenever possible. Now, of course, the super plating craftsman works for a price that we can't afford, and it's okay because we don't really have anything meaningful to plate here. But this is a super important character when you find them in the dungeon. There are also plating scrolls that you can read to plate an item yourself. That are important too. Can't plate a weapon or shield. I know they're first rate, but my wallet is not. So here's a point switch right there. So 10 points. Okay, just wandering around to encourage exploration. We got another point switch right there. Oil scroll, not super useful. We'll go ahead and take care of that CD. Otigoroso. So different items here. So Otigariso can heal your HP, or it'll boost your max HP. A lot of times early on, since you have so little HP to work with, I will usually eat this just to get the 2 extra hit points, because it's enough of a growth. When you only have 15 to work with, an improvement of 2, pretty useful. Now later in the dungeons, when you have like 80 HP, obviously that's not really a great benefit, and it's more useful to keep it around, but for the actual capability to heal up, if you don't want to wait around in a dungeon like we talked about before. Safe shield. So safe shield, it has the question mark. It's in yellow, so this is unidentified. And so the basic idea of the safe shield. And you'll see here, so there's power, upgrade max, and then the rune count up at the top. So the power right now of this shield is a 6, which is better than what we've got for the 10 shield, which is a very basic shield. The upgrade max means how many modifiers you can put on it. What can you upgrade this to? So you can upgrade it up to a plus to a 15 shield. The rune count deals with the special runes that are associated with the weapon or shield, like we talked about. In this case, Safe Shield has a rune that protects a particular type of monster from stealing from you. The Froggo monsters, which we'll catch later. Right now, we'll go ahead and equip this. Equipping it sometimes, depending on the item or the dungeon, rather, will reveal what it is. So Safe Shield, let's sort our stuff. It's just a plain safe shield, but sometimes you might be lucky enough to get like a safe shield +2 or +1. You won't know until it's identified, either through an identify scroll, an NPC identifying it for you, or in this particular case, just equipping it. The downside of something like this is that it can also be cursed. You put on an item and it's a cursed shield, which means you can't unequip it. And it could be like a cursed shield -2, and now all of a sudden you're stuck with really bad equipment until you get the curse removed. So Slumber Scroll. A lot of these items up front are just kind of are mostly garbage. Like Slumber Scroll is okay, but okay, Dotanuki is a decent sword. So it's a 10 power. So compare that to the ordinary stick that we had before that was only 2. Dotanuki is something that we can equip and ideally start building up. Yeah, Dotanuki plus 3, so that's really good. Really good at this stage in the game. So now one of the things you might notice on the weapons and shields here, and you can see it on the 10 shield, there are these little bars next to the item icon. Your weapons and shields gain experience as well as you go through the dungeon, and they will upgrade over time to have a higher rune count or to have different properties. Yeah, you're going to be able to one-shot. Whoop, wasn't paying attention. I was too busy rambling. To one-shot monsters. So, now in a situation like this, with multiple monsters attacking, you'll notice that I came into the hallway. So just fundamental roguelike 101. You want to make sure that you're really only dealing with one enemy at a time. So you can retreat to a hallway like this and single out enemies because they can't attack you over the corners. If you get a weapon that allows 3-way attack, this is especially useful because you can sit here right at the edge of the hallway and you can hit all 3 of the monsters that are adjacent to you, but only the middle one can attack you. 16 damage. One-shotting enemies here is good stuff. And as you go through a given dungeon, so upgrade seed. As you go through a given dungeon, the ability to one-shot monsters gives you a good indication of how you're doing relative to the power curve for the given dungeon that you're at. So I usually like, well, it's not like it's a controversial thing. I usually like making sure that I have weapons that are on curve so that if I'm forced to defend myself, I'm in a good position to do so. Now, obviously, later post-game dungeons and other later floors, you're going to start, there's only so far that you can go up the power curve before the monsters will outpace you. And you have to play a more evasive style of game. You have to avoid the monsters rather than confronting them head-on. Blast Shield. Let's take a look at that. And then we'll also do the upgrade seed here in a second. So explosive damage. So the power's 5. I'm gonna go ahead and equip it because so see it's plus 2. It was a base 5, which means it was under the safe shield, but the plus 2 modifier gave it a 7. It means that it's an upgrade. So let's go ahead and sort out, and then let's talk about the upgrade seed. So upgrade seed gives you Tinkerer status. So that's one of the status effects that we were talking about. With the Tinkerer status, your equipped weapon and shield will be upgraded more quickly. So that gets to the experience points that I was talking about. This is much more pertinent now. You can see the current state is Tinkerer below. There's the little flashy stars above Sharon. You can also see how the weapons and shields gain experience when equipped. So, herb was picked up. There was a life grass here. So, life grass, herb, Otigariso, all of those kind of function the same way with different strengths. So, if I use a life grass, I gain 4 hit points. Again, like this early on, it's pretty useful to go ahead and do that. But it won't be long before it won't be. So swap staff. I have a stave now. So targets hit with magic bolts will switch positions with you. Throwing the staff will produce the same effect. So swap staff gets more into evasive style of play. A warp grass. Here, we can just use the warp grass right here. Teleport you somewhere on the current floor. Using some of this will replenish your fullness. So You only live once. Let's see where we go. Right there. Perfect. Right in the perfect spot to smack an enemy. So Warp Grass is useful if you get tangled up in an encounter that you thought you could win, but you're in pretty bad shape. Or if you're running from a bunch of monsters and they're catching up to you, or you get cornered, Warp Grass can carry you to a different point of the dungeon as sort of a last resort. Obviously not always reliable, because you don't know where you're warping to. But as with everything in roguelike, sometimes you have to balance that risk versus the reward that gets paid off. Alright. So I think... Let's see. So the Dotanuki +3 is really... I mean, that's a really good sword here. You can end up going through Destiny Trail the first time without getting much of anything. You do see now the Chintala, like we've made it to a different point in the power curve now. I'm having to hit this enemy twice to get them to go down. You can't, in a corner like this, if there's a wall there, you can't attack the corner unless you have that three-way hit that I mentioned. Oh, a bracelet. Now, so bracelets, if I equip this, bracelet is not going to be unidentified in the same way a sword is. I tend to be a little more careful with bracelets because bracelets can have weird effects. I'm gonna equip it if it'll let me. Bracelets will do really wacky things like explode every step you take. Ouch! Hit a trap. Or just all sorts of things. So if it's usually good to maybe only use those if you actually know what they do. Just a thought. Go ahead and mow down these enemies here. Synthesis pot, so this is good. Do we have anything really worth synthesizing at this point? I don't know. The blast shield, if I wanted to put the blast shield runes into... Yeah, let's see. Let's see what the day shield gets us here. Trip trap, it didn't trigger. That's good. So day shield +1. So it's basically the same thing. All right. So just for the sake of argument, let's go ahead. So day shield. The impact here is. This shield reduces damage taken from day monsters. So right now it's not much of an issue, but if you look in that upper left, you will see the sun there to indicate that it's daytime. In the later dungeons in Sheer the Wanderer, you will get a day-night cycle. At nighttime, you actually won't be able to see without the use of a torch. And you have to use the different abilities that you'll build up over time, that like abilities as actual skills. That you learn along the way. And that's something that comes up later after you get to the Hermit's Village, after the first tower, past tower, present tower, future. Once you get the Dice of Fate and go to the Tower of Fortune, that'll become a bigger part of the main campaign. So... be sure to remove this when night falls, Dayman. Huh, okay, thanks for that. So let's go ahead in the synthesis pot. We can insert, and we'll go ahead and insert multiple items here. So you can use the R button, you can see to do them in order. The first item that you put into a synthesis pot is the item that will stay, so to speak. The one that had the highest base, I think, was actually the safe shield. So if we do the safe shield first, and then all the other modifiers get folded into that. So we'll do the blast and the day shield. Tin shield doesn't have any modifiers or runes, so it's not really worth merging through synthesis at this point. So we go ahead and put them in. Now let's look at the synthesis pot. Okay, so see, if you look at this, so safe shield +3. So the modifiers from the items got merged together into a better item. And we consolidated inventory too, which is always good. So now I will throw... I need to break it against something. I thought it would break against the monster. Good job. Let's pick up our synthesis pot. Let's throw it to break it, because a lot of these pots you can't pull items out of. You can only insert items into. Synthesis pot is one of those. So you put the item in there, and then you have to break the pot to extract it. Now we have safe shield +3. We will grab it. We will equip it. And we're at 9 now instead of 7. So we have, if you look at the way the shield looks, kind of weird, kind of boxy. The different weapon and shield pictures in this game can get pretty wild. But that, here, we'll go ahead and eat an onigiri because we're at 69. All right, let's see here. Oh, Blade Bee. Can be a Blade Bees can be an annoying enemy early on. Oh, that's a trap. Okay. And you can see the trap that X indicated up on the map. For some reason, while we were talking, I forgot that I did get hit by that arrow trap earlier. I thought it was a point switch, because that'll show up as a trap on your map as well. Oh, who's this? The flower petals, the stars, the moon. Oh my. Though I don't do uncouth things like killing monsters. Please accept this. Stomach expander. So this is a grass that we can eat that'll give us, it'll expand the fullness gauge so that we aren't as hungry. Go ahead and use that. Get our gold in this case. So, this enemy right here is a pin kid or a grass kid. So right now they just kind of look like a frazzled bird, and they are moving. They move pretty fast. When they pick up grass, they become much more powerful at that point. And they can throw that grass at you, or they can, like right here, this is... You can see that it actually does much more damage. And it drops the grass that it had, so the power-up grass. Power-up grass will give you strength. And you can use that later when you need a boost. So we're actually, I kind of lost track of time here. We're at our hour, which is about all the time that we've got. I've unfortunately got a hard stop. I did see some people popping in and out of the stream. Thank you for joining. And there wasn't much going on in the chat today, which is fine. This is first stream, but when we do this again, and I will do this again we'll go ahead and even suspend what we've got here. We'll suspend our adventure for the next time, which will hopefully be sometime next week, and we will pick it up from there. In the meantime, happy Friday. Thanks to everybody for watching and for joining, and have a great weekend.